Hello guys, and welcome to my new video. And today I haven't done an add-on video for a really long time. I think the last video was like a year ago. So this is one of the most frequently asked questions that I get. What add-ons are you using? Why are you using specific add-ons? Is there any tips and tricks? How do you get this? So let's go and get started. The first thing I want to talk about, because you see the whole UI here, majority of this user interface is made up of ElvUI, and there's going to be people who hate it, who love ElvUI. It's going to change your whole interface, and ElvUI has gone through some recent controversy in terms of performance, and they have done a lot in order to improve the performance of ElvUI because it is going to change everything. Now, a lot of people seem to think that if you do get ElvUI, you have to use every single element. You absolutely do not. I am, like, for example, nameplates. I'm not using nameplates at all, so I'm actually using things like KuiNameplates. I use things like Grid 2, so you can actually go pick and choose the different things that you want to include. Like, for example, I don't use bags. There's so many different things I don't use, and I just untick them. They don't have to be enabled. But the thing, or the main reason why I use ElvUI, I love the action bars. I really like the little, the kind of skins, the style that's applied to a lot of the screens. It is really, in my opinion, it's really nice. But if you want to use ElvUI, you have to consider the fact that there is going to be a small or some sort of performance hit when you use ElvUI, but in my opinion, it's definitely worth it. And in terms of different configurations, I don't really have a whole lot of configurations. You can click on the bottom left toggle anchors and you can see where everything is. And this is basically how I play for the last couple of years, and I'm just super used to it. Boss frames have become more and more popular because of fights like Pantheon and things like that. So this is my ElvUI setup, and this is what I use. And I kind of want to go into DBM. And the reason why I want to go into DBM because it's kind of handled by ElvUI and AddOnSkins. So a lot of people who watch my videos in terms of boss frames and things like that, I do use DBM. Now, why am I not using bigwigs? It's because I use DBM for a very long time. I'm very used to it. There's a lot of audio notifications you can get with specific add-ons. So I'm using DBM, and this is the kind of, I'm going to showcase you how it looks like, start test bars, and this is kind of how it looks like. This is my kind of like abilities that are upcoming, and these are abilities that are about to happen. Now, you cannot get these bars without, or the skin or the look and feel of these bars, without using additional add-ons like AddOnSkins. So if I go to the list of all the add-ons that I have, you can see them all here. I have a lot, but a lot of them are not doing a whole lot. But you need to have an add-on called here AddOnSkins, and after that you can go into ElvUI. And again, the screen is flashing because of DBM and notifications, but you go into ElvUI, you go into AddOnSkins, which is going to be at the bottom here. And in AddOnSkins, you need to make sure to click DBM half bar skin, and that's it. That's going to apply the DBM skin that you saw straight away. And again, it just works really well. It has integration with ElvUI and things like that, and I think it's really interesting. And now let's move on to another thing that's really a lot of people ask me about, and it's this. It's the damage meters. A lot of people ask me about the DPS meters, the healing meters, and they basically ask me, what is going on here? What is this little list of showing my recent spells and things like that? Now, if you're not a streamer, you don't really need to use it. It's mainly for a lot of people who want to showcase what spells and abilities they're using. But if you want to remove or add it, you can go into your details, which is your my damage meter add-on. In details options, you will see plugins, and in plugins you'll see this thing called action tracker. That's basically what it's called within details. But if you just want to outright disable this, you can just click, not enabled. But you might even want to go to add-on sections, scroll down to the DBM, and just untick details streamer plugin. That's if you don't want this. Now, if you want this, there's a lot of different options that you can use. So let's go to our plugin. We're going to details, we're going to plugins, and now we're going to action tracker. And in the option section, you'll see that there is use square mode, and you've probably seen a lot of people using this as well. So this is how your actions are going to be displayed. They're going to be displayed as icons instead of like a bar style, and you can do that. I don't really like this style that much, so that's why I don't use it. But if you want it, you can change it, and this is probably the most frequently asked question that I get. How do I add this or remove this? And that is part of details add-on. If you're a healer, this is going to be your bread and butter, and it's the most important thing. Again, you can do /grid 2, and you'll have these options And again, I've made a bunch of Grid 2 videos on how to customize it, on how to use it. I've been using this add-on for a really long time. I think the advantage of Grid 2 over other kind of health frame add-ons is that the fact that it's very minimalistic in terms of the CPU usage, is very efficient, and once you get used to it, it's really good. Now, one of the things that I really like about this, if you go into statuses, if you go to debuffs and you expand debuffs and you go into raid debuffs, you'll see that there's going to be, you're probably brought into this screen, and I'm gonna put in Shadowlands, Mythic. You can have enabled detection, but you don't need to do that. But you'll have debuff configuration, and you'll click Shadowlands. You probably won't have this, but or at least it's not selected by default. But this is the raid, and now in the raid, we're gonna make this a little bit bigger. So now you see every raid boss in the new raid and the debuffs and that they have, and you can track. You can click enable, disable, and I think this style of adding and removing important debuffs is really cool, and it's one of the advantages of Grid 2 in my opinion. And you can make, you know, if certain person has a debuff, you can change the color of it, which is what I've done with my debuff, with my Grid 2 profiles, and this is one of the advantages of Grid. Also, I do have to mention, a lot of people like for example, look at the color of my frame. I'm using Chain Heal, and it's changed a little bit, and it showcases the people who got hit by Chain Heal, and I think that's a really cool feature, and it's really easy to use. You go into statuses again, you don't have to go into debuffs, you can minimize that, and you go into AoE heals, and in AoE heals I have Shaman, and basically I have this color for the AoE heal. I have the spell, I can add Healing Rain, and I can click accept, and it's gonna show for 2 seconds. It's gonna have this color. So now if I use Healing Rain, and if I step into it, check out my screen now. I am stepping into it, but if I step into it right now, the color of the frame changes, just to showcase that you've been affected by Healing Rain. Now it's not going to work for every single healing ability. There is some weird kind of details that are changing per spec, so kind of try it out, see if it works. But I don't really use Healing Rain for it. Like if you're using certain talents, there are certain talents that could be really cool for it, but I just use Chain Heal, because if I know that Chain Heal is not hitting enough targets, I don't want to cast Chain Heal on that person, especially with the foresight bonus. So Grid 2, before we're gonna finish Grid 2, there's also another feature that I thought was really cool, because I've recently discovered it. Grid 2 was kind of improved on top of it. So especially if you're playing Restoration Shaman, we go into Grid 2 /Grid 2, and we go into general, we go into layouts. Now in layouts, if you're doing Pantheon fight, you know, there's seeds. You can actually try display boss units, so you can see the boss units right here. And this is going to display the seeds in Pantheon, but it's also going to display the targets that need to be DPS'd, and it's going to take up additional space. But you can use this for additional seed healing. Now I don't really do it, because I do think that, again, you can see it here, it's kind of like a fade out thing, and I don't think there's a lot of other customization options that you have. If there is, let me know, but that's all I found right now. Units per column and hide empty, but that's not the one that I want to showcase. I want to showcase display focus units. So you can see that focus unit is right here, and if I focus myself, it shows up here. The important part of this is that if you're playing Earth Elemental Lego, and again, this is the one here that I have. So your Earth Elemental has permanently attached Earthquake, and if Earth Elemental dies, it's a very bad deal. Now, if you have a macro to focus your Earth Elemental when you cast it, this is what's going to happen. I click it again, and my Earth Elemental shows up, and you can see it's lost a little, well, it shows up as a little lost HP, but you can see that my Earth Elemental is now focus target, and it shows up to the right of my Grid 2 profile. If you don't have focus macro or a focus set to your Earth Elemental, it's not going to show. This is focus macro, this is no focus macro. So this is something that I've recently tried out, because keeping your Earth Elemental topped up during a lot of the Mythic Plus weeks is the difference between doing good DPS and doing bad DPS. And this is something that people might try out. And again, let me know how it feels. I haven't tested out this to a great extent, because I don't like the way that the focus bar looks like when you have no focus enemy or focus target at all. But if you try it out, if it helps, let me know, guys. Now let's go to Clique, and Clique is something that I've, again, made videos about this previously, and again, it's just a very easy way of making basically Mouseover macros, and again, I can heal Riptide on myself without having to select myself. And that is the big advantage of Clique, and you can have macros, and this is where you saw my Earth Elemental macro set to 5, because you can just click on bind other and run a custom macro, copy and paste the macro code and set a keybind to it. And this is exactly what I did for this, which is my, again, I probably can make it a little bit better, but this is my Earth Elemental macro that I kind of use, and it's set to my keybind number 5, so I don't press it by accident. Now, keep in mind, I've been using this for a long time, and I still believe Clique is a really good option, but Blizzard has recently introduced, if you go to your kind of keybind settings, you'll see that there is a click casting option. And if you can click on click casting option, you'll see the Blizzard's version of Clique. I've not used this a lot, and because quite frankly, Clique has been really good for me, but there is an alternative to Clique add-on, which is the Blizzard's version. And if you used it, let me know if it's better than Clique and things like that, because I might make a separate video about this. But I right now use Clique for everything. These are my kind of keybinds for my Resto Shaman. You can see there's a lot of repeating keybinds that I have to right click, enable, disable, binding set. Like for example, right now I'm using, I'm Kyrian, so I'm using Vesper Totem, and it's page down. Now page down, the reason it says page down because I'm using an MMO mouse, and an MMO mouse does not create new buttons, it just uses buttons on the keyboard that get translated. So this is actually my, on my mouse, on my MMO mouse key. I can just enable, disable, binding set. I don't want this, and if I swap to Ventier, I have my Chain Harvest and I just click default. And now I'm Ventier. But of course, I'm not Ventier right now, so I don't want this. There are better ways of doing this. There are add-ons who let you swap covenants, and covenant ability is easier, but this is the way that I'm doing it right now because I have different kind of, like I don't need a target. The reason I clicked on global is because I don't need a target for Vesper Totem. I don't need to cast it on a target, I can cast it anywhere, and that's why I can move it anywhere as well. So I have these specific keybinds, but Clique is what I'm using at the moment. Now let's go to kind of cooldown tracking, and there are two add-ons that I'm using right now for cooldown tracking. That is to do method raid tools, used to be called Exorcist raid tools, and OmniCD, not OmniCC, OmniCD. Oh, actually, just before we're gonna go to OmniCD, there is an add-on called OmniCC that lets you have a cooldown text for grid 2. So this is something that I use. I use OmniCC add-on to add the cooldown text, just to showcase what OmniCC is before we're gonna go on a tangent. It just basically allows you to have cooldowns on anything. And grid 2 kind of needs that to provide cooldown text. So if you are using grid 2, you probably will have to get OmniCC on top of the fact that you might have to get Clique. So keep that in mind, but we're going on a tangent. OmniCD and method raid tools. We're gonna go to method raid tools first. So if you type in /MRT, the first letter of each word, you'll see method raid tools. This has gone through a lot of different iterations, but what you can use raid cooldowns, and this is something that I use right now. And the raid cooldowns have different kind of templates. You probably see a lot of people using some kind of a, like if you're a healer health frame, and they'll have cooldown tracking on the side of the frame. So this is something very important in like Mythic Plus content where you have 5 targets, and you need to make sure if someone's popping a cooldown, if they have defensives. And you can actually achieve that with MRT, which is method raid tools, by going into appearances, by going to templates, and you can, like, this is exactly what I talked about. So you can't do that with method raid tools. I have not tested this. I've not used this because I use OmniCD. And OmniCD is an add-on that I made a video about previously. It is extremely popular right now. And what I did recently, so if you go into dungeons, you can click the test and you can see here, this is how it's going to kind of look. If you go into positions, you can change the X offset, Y offset. You can change all of these positioning icon sizes and things like that. Maybe it's a little bit too small. Maybe you want it on the left side. Maybe you want it on top, whatever. You can change all of that things. But what I've recently done with this OmniCD is that you can track health potions. And health potions is a big deal because there's a new health potion called Cosmic Healing Potion, which heals you for 20k instead of 10k. And this is something that I added very recently. You have to go into spell editor. You go into spell editor and you add a spell ID, and this is the spell ID that you need to add. This is the one that you need to have right now. It's going to have the same icon for Cosmic Healing Potion as the Spiritual Healing Potion. Same icon, but this only heals for 10k and the one heals for 20k. And this is the spell ID. You just add the spell ID here, and you make sure the cooldown is longer because I think it's set to like 1 minute initially. It's longer than 1 minute. And then you need to go to dungeons, you need to go to spells, and in spells, again, I should have mentioned that in spell editor I added it under trinkets and main hand. You might add it under something else. I think this is the default one, so you probably be fine. But you go into dungeons, you go into spells, and you go to trinkets in main hand, and you'll see again they have added a bunch of new options for this. But you'll see here, this is the spiritual healing potion, and you untick this and you add cosmic healing potion. And this is something that I had to do for a bunch of different characters because I'm playing Druid and Shaman. And this will work. I've actually tested it, and Cosmic Healing Potion will show up and it'll be used and everything's going to be great. And this is why I'm using OmniCD, because it's just very, very easy to configure. Now let's move on to nameplates and scrolling combat text and things like that, because these are kind of fall into the same category. In terms of nameplates, now I do not use, again, I talked about ElvUI, but I do not use the default ElvUI nameplates because I'm just super used to KuiNameplates, and you can see it right here. It'll show things like, you know, if you do Flame Shock again. I like the way that it looks like. I like the style of it, and I've been using KuiNameplates for a very long time. Now, keep in mind, I can tell you right now, Plater is a better and more customizable option than KuiNameplates, but with Plater, you're probably better off using someone else's profile that's really good, because in order to configure it, you can spend weeks and weeks. And if you're a type of person like me who just tries to configure it and try to get it perfect or whatever, perfect for myself, I can just fiddle with it all day. So I just end up using KuiNameplates just for the fact that it looks the best, in my opinion, out of the box without having to do anything. And this is the, if you're not sure what add-on I'm talking about, KuiNameplates, these are the kind of configurations. CVARs are very important in my opinion, because the way your nameplates are going to be clamped, and you can see clamp top, clamp bottom, and things like that. And what do I mean by that? In terms of, like, if I select this, if I go off, or if you can see the nameplate, it's staying no matter where I'm looking at it, it's staying on screen, and it also has a specific distance that it cannot go, like you can set the clamp top and things like that. This is what I mean by that. And if you don't want overlapping, or if you want stacking versions of these add-ons, you go into interface, you go into game, you go into names, and here you'll see nameplate motion type. Instead of stacking, you can change to overlapping. And this is quite important because on big trash bag posts, you might not be able to see everything. There is no good solution for big trash bag posts and nameplates. You probably will always have some issues with that. It's just the way that the game goes. But you see that every time I select a mob, it changes the color. And this is an additional add-on to complement KuiNameplates, and that is called KuiTargetHelper. Now, this is a separate add-on, and it just gives you additional configurations because KuiNameplates are really, really weak in terms of configurations. So, enable target color, you can change it to anything. I have it white, and then you can have custom target colors for explosives, which is very important because they'll have different colors for explosives if you need to deal with it as a healer, and So they recently added, and this is the new Mythic Plus affix. Unfortunately, this add-on does not have export profiles, so you just have to configure it the way it is. Now, enough nameplate talk. Let's talk about, I just saw you using Flame Shock and using a bunch of damage. What the heck is this? What is this? And you can, again, one step at a time. This here is called XCT. Again, I need to go out of combat. I think I'll have to step away from here a bit, but you can see the damage here. XCT, so XCT, and you can see it right here, and this is what I use to showcase the different incoming damage, outgoing damage, and you can click on move, and you can see here outgoing, this is outgoing criticals, these are healing incoming, this is damage incoming, and this is what I use. Unfortunately, this add-on is not updated as often as possible because the author, I think, is not playing WoW anymore, but it's still updated enough for it to work, and I still really, really enjoy this. So this is the add-on that I use. Now, you also might ask, what the hell is this? You see the little numbers coming up on the actual target. I use 2 scroll and combat text add-ons because I think both of them are actually extremely excellent in terms of the looks and things like that. Now, I talked about XCT here. I need to get out of combat. The add-on that you see on top of the frames or on top of the enemy frames is going to be called, and again, if you go to the add-on list, it's going to be called NameplateSCT, or scrolling combat text. And again, unfortunately, this add-on does not have an export feature in terms of profiles, so you basically just have to add the settings that you see right now. And you can change the way that the abilities appear in terms of rainfall, fountain, vertical down and up. I like rainfall and fountain. I use expressway font, and I really enjoy, again, I really enjoy how it looks like. Now let's move on to smaller aspects of the UI. And again, a lot of people ask me about the bags and how we sort the bags. This is called AdiBags. So if you go to interface, you go to add-ons, you'll see the first thing that comes up. You can configure it, and honestly, there's a lot of options in terms of, you saw my bags. They're kind of filtered by jewelry, filtered by weapons, miscellaneous. Honestly, you can get away with just default AdiBags look and feel, the default filtering. There's a lot of additional kind of plugin add-ons for AdiBags like Hearthstones, miscellaneous, and things like that, which you can add. And you can see here in terms of the add-ons that, again, I have to click on add-ons, and you can see here I have AdiBags conduits, AdiBags Hearthstone, and these are the ones that I kind of use. And honestly, it just looks good by default. I think it looks good by default. And if you, the most important thing for me, if you want to change the way that it looks and feels, is changing your maximum back height, because you can have a kind of like a horizontal look or a vertical look, and this is where the magic happens. This is what's going to make it look great or bad. And outside of AdiBags, we're going to look at, again, this is a very small additional option, that is the HidingBar. You can see it right here. This is something that a lot of people ask me. I've looked for an add-on that's going to hide all the little add-on like kind of minimap icons for a long time, because I really hate the way that minimap icons can look around your minimap, and it just doesn't look great. So HidingBar, you might, again, we'll go to the options here, add-ons and HidingBar, and again, if you mouse over it and if you click it, you'll see all the different minimap icons, and this is where you can configure it. You can actually change the positioning and the look and feel of it. You can see it has ignore list, it has a lot of options. It's been improved a lot recently. You can lock it, you can change the button settings in terms of button sizes, distances, and things like that. This add-on is great, but I don't want to talk about it too much because it's very self-explanatory. HidingBar. Every time you open a screen, what's happening here? I can move it. And this is a huge deal because this add-on was broken at the start of the new patch, and honestly, I cannot live without this add-on anymore, because moving your frames, any frame, any screen that you see, moving it or being able to move it is extremely important. The default Blizzard UI does not allow you to do that, which to me is actually baffling. So I use an add-on called BlizzMove. BlizzMove has been here for a very long time. It doesn't require any additional options. There's plenty of other moving add-ons, but they require you to set the positioning, require to do a bunch of different things. This add-on, you install it and you leave it. The only thing I would change is you go into BlizzMove, you go to global config, and you change how should frame position be remembered, and change that to remember permanently. This might cause some bugs once in a while, but this means that anytime you log into your game, my character screen is always going to be shown here. If I want my character screen to be here, that's fine. It's going to be shown here every time I open it. And the position is going to be remembered across all of your characters, across all of your, like, your game, basically, your computer. And this is why I think this add-on is very important to install and manage. Now, the last add-on that I wanted to talk about, honestly, this is quite important. So you can see, I didn't want to talk about WeakAuras because WeakAuras require, I could make a 50-minute video about WeakAuras and how to work with WeakAuras, how to work with WeakAuras sounds, how to add WeakAuras, a basic WeakAuras tutorial. This is not the video for this. So I have a bunch of WeakAuras and I really like my WeakAuras, but if you don't have this add-on, the style of WeakAuras is going to just look terrible. In my opinion, everyone needs to have an add-on called Masque. So you can see it here right now, Masque. This add-on applies skins to different aspects of the game. So if you go to Masque right now, you can go to skin selection and you can be like global. You can apply a skin to everyone. You can go to ElvUI and apply a skin to this. I don't need to apply a skin to ElvUI because ElvUI has this like ElvUI skin already applied. But HidingBar has Masque integration. NameplateSCT has Masque integration, which I apply clean UI thin. And WeakAuras have Masque integration. And now you can apply a different skin to these WeakAuras, and these icons are going to look a lot better. Believe me, if you do not have this add-on, if you're about, This will take a bit of a memory hit in terms of usage, but it'll make your WeCourse look a lot better, and I feel that's very, very important. I cannot recommend this add-on a lot more, because if I didn't have Masque, the add-ons or the WeCourse would look absolutely terrible in my opinion in terms of look and feel. And this is going to be my video in terms of add-on list. Again, this was very, very long. I did add chapters at the end or to all of the different add-ons if you want to check it out. There is a bunch of tips and tricks that I missed out on. I don't want to make, again, I could make a video for WeCourse alone. I could make video for a lot of different concepts, but this is just my default add-on list that hopefully will give you an idea of what add-ons I like, I enjoy, and how to configure them a little bit better. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next guide.